Welcome back to the second hour of Nothing Personal on Tuesday, July 15th. You know, Tuesdays, we have a guest in the second hour, and I'm super excited to welcome Terry Virts to the show. He's a former F-16 pilot with the Air Force, a former NASA astronaut. Yes, that's true. And he's a current candidate for the Democratic Party in Texas to be in the U.S. Senate. I wanted to bring him on right now to talk about why he's running for Senate and what difference he can make in our country, which is facing a constitutional crisis in some regards and a brand new world in many political spectrums. And Terry Virts, you want to be a part of it. Welcome, Terry.
Thanks for having me back on, David. I had to rep, I got my Nolan Ryan Rainbow Astros jersey on today.
When I look at that one, I actually think of J.R. Richard. He's the first person I associate with that jersey.
The Astrodome. You know, the Astrodome is still there. It's right next to the Texans Stadium. I just saw Metallica there a couple weeks ago.
Terry, I got to ask because I've known you a very long time, a friend of the show, a friend of mine, met you through Jeff Conine, Mr. Marlin, and I watched you get launched into space live. I've seen you and spoken to you while in space. The coolest phone call I've ever gotten in my life was from you while you were in space on the space station. And you are living your life as a former astronaut from NASA. And then you see an opening and you decide you want to get into politics. Walk me through that decision.
So it wasn't that I was looking for a job, and it's not like I said, oh, now here's my chance to be a senator. It really came down to, man, things are bad. The country's going in a bad direction. And I could either kind of stand by. In the last election cycle, I supported some folks that I thought were good folks and tried to help them. And it just got to the point where I can't just sit around and do nothing anymore. There's the idea that to those who much has been given, much will be expected, and I've been given a lot. I'm really just an average guy, but I went to a great public school and got to live in outer space for 7 months. So I've been given a lot from this country, and it was my chance to give back.
So when you say it's your chance to give back, there's so many ways to give back. And obviously, politics is a very interesting one because it's fraught. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's fraught with all sorts of difficulties where we have a hard time in this country finding qualified candidates to run. And what made you sit down and who did you talk to when you had this epiphany? Listen, I'm qualified to be a senator.
So there's a funny Harry Truman quote. When he got to the Senate, he looked around and he said, "What am I doing here?" And then 6 weeks later, he looked around and he said, "What are they doing here?" So, although I don't have, political training, I'm not a lawyer like you are. But I'm trainable. I was a fighter pilot, but on my space missions, I was the crew medical officer. So I was kind of like the doctor in space. So I think I can learn the job. And the most important thing, you know why they picked Neil Armstrong to be the first man on the moon? It wasn't because he was the best. He was a great pilot. He was an amazing test pilot, but there was a whole office full of great pilots. It wasn't because of all of his experience. I mean, no one had ever landed on the moon. They picked him for his judgment. And they knew that when it was time to land, if he had to abort, he would push the red button to abort, or if it was time to land, he would land. They picked him for his judgment to make the right decisions. And I think that's what we need to do when it comes to politics. Unfortunately, the universe we live in is so fragmented. And if you're in the one echo chamber, all you ever hear is the other guys are the devil. And if you're in the other echo chamber, all you ever hear is the other guys are Hitler or whatever. And that's just not true. I just read a bunch of research, and there's a whole lot of issues that more than 80% of Americans agree on. We always hear about how divided we are. The reality is there's all kinds of stuff that almost everybody agrees on. Everybody agrees if you're an illegal alien and you're committing crimes, you should be deported. Everybody agrees that we should protect Social Security for old people. Everybody agrees you should do background checks before you buy a gun. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that people agree on. But that doesn't sell. The algorithms make you money if you generate hate and get mad at the other people. That's what generates money on YouTube and Google and stuff. So we got to figure out what unites us, I think.
So when you're trying to get people to your YouTube page and you're going through your platform, so tell people where to go to learn about
Yeah.
you as a candidate.
So the website's terryvirts.com, TerryVirts. You can see my launch video there. I did a really cool launch video. I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm really running against both parties. After you watch that video, you'll understand that I won't be getting any Christmas cards from Chuck Schumer next year. But it's a cool video. I filmed it in a space shuttle cockpit in the simulator. So the same sim where I trained to be the pilot of Endeavor. Part of it's in that. And then my friend has the best World War II Jeep collection. These Bantam Jeeps were like the original Jeep. And so a big part of it is filmed in this World War II Jeep in this cow field. Not for any reason other than if you have a chance to shoot a video in a World War II Jeep, why wouldn't you? So it's a pretty cool video.
So I don't want to spend too much time on the 80% because I love where your head's at.
Yeah.
That 80% of the issues you can get agreement across the aisle, but
Yeah.
really elections are won or lost in that other 20%.
Yeah.
And so when you think about when you're trying to get a voter and you just said that, hey, I'm not sure that I'm really a Democrat, I'm not sure I'm really a Republican. So how do you define what your beliefs are? And you can do it by an issue. If you want to talk about immigration, you can do it in a macro way. But tell me, if you don't want me to look at you as a Democrat or a Republican, how do you want me to look at you?
Yeah, so in Texas, look, the Democrats haven't won here for 30 years. Democrats haven't won here since you were with the Montreal Expos back in the day. Since we didn't have a World Series. That's how long it's been. So unless I can attract independents, moderates, Republicans who are disaffected with Trump, unless those guys vote for me, I'm going to lose. So um, it comes down to values. And I believe in America. I believe in telling the truth. I'm going to tell people the truth. I'm going to call balls and strikes like I see them. I'm not just going to be on one team yelling about the other team. And we have an administration right now that lies incessantly. It's impossible to keep up with the amount of crap that they put out constantly every day.
So how do you
And I'm
deal
going to
with
call
that
that
though,
out.
Terry?
What's
Because
that?
what the Republicans would say is that Democrats are no better. And that if we had a country under Harris or the country we had under Biden was actually ineffective, it was not from a legislative standpoint getting anything done. And Trump and his party says, look, we just got this big, beautiful bill passed. I want to talk about that. And because that was a major vote that senators were obviously there's only 100 of you, two per
Right.
state. It's not like the House where it's based on the census. And so you have to get 51 votes and the VP can break the tie, which is what happened in the big, beautiful bill. Are there parts of that bill that we should all be focused on that you had issue with as a Democrat? Or more importantly, are there parts of that bill that you actually agreed to as a Democrat running for Senate?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of issues I have with the bill. First of all, it's a massive, huge spending bill that they crammed through 51 to 49. In the House, it only passed by a few votes. In Texas, they've gerrymandered us really badly to where Republicans have four extra seats than they should have. If Texas didn't have such egregious gerrymandering, that bill would not have passed. And so if you're going to do something that big, you really should do it bipartisan. Let's get the whole country on board. And that's not at all what happened. I have issues with 1.4 million Texans getting kicked off Medicaid. I've got really close family members who depend on Medicaid, and 1.5 million Texans are going to lose that. The biggest thing that should terrify every American is what's happening with ICE. We have by far the largest police force in American history, bigger than the FBI or anything. The ICE is just massive. The budget is so big that it's bigger than all but 15 of the world's largest militaries. It would be one of the largest, militaries on earth. And right here in Houston, just a couple days ago, they took this mom who's been living here for 20 years. Her kids they were taking their kids to college. Now she was undocumented. Throw her in an unmarked car, and I don't know if she's going to the El Salvador gulag or what. They hide at immigration judicial proceedings, and they just guys in plain clothes, grab people, throw them in unmarked cars. This is not America. This is what was happening in Germany in the 1930s. And when I'm a senator, I'm going to get ICE back under control because it's just un-American.
But the 80% of people who say, yeah, we do have a problem with immigration and that our borders are too open or that there are too many people here who are undocumented. And sometimes you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And this, whether this is my view or not, I want to discuss this because what is in my head, and this has impacted my family actually with a deportation that's happening with someone who has worked with us for decades, who is being sent back because her status is temporary. And so the TPS orders are being rescinded for a bunch of countries. And I understand why that's happening because what they're trying to do is make sure that in the big sweep, they get those who have the wrong status, expired status, or truly are criminals. But how do I fight for the people who I know and love who are here, like the mom you're talking about? What can we do as a country to differentiate?
Yeah, what they're really doing is filling Stephen Miller quotas, one of the worst human beings in our government. And they have to take the low-hanging fruit to get these thousands of people a day that they're trying to round up. But they're taking construction workers. In Houston, we have a housing crisis. Guess what? That's going to get worse now. They're taking farm workers, and these are people who are abiding by the law. Congress should do its job. And look, you shouldn't come here illegally. And I'm going to bash my own party for a second. Um, During the last election, Democrats pretended that illegal immigration was fine. It's not fine. I disagree with it. It needed to stop, and they didn't stop it. And Americans agreed too. They said that Joe Biden was not too old. Well, Joe Biden was too old, and the American voters could see that. So Democrats were gaslighting voters, and I think voters are smart. They know that Donald Trump is full of, you know what, horse hockey would be the David Samson term. They know that he lies, and yet they still trusted him more than they trusted Democrats. So as Democrats, we have a big problem. And I'm going to do a quick diversion here. As a fighter pilot, we would debrief my combat missions over Iraq. We'd go fly over Iraq, we'd come back and we'd debrief to figure out what went right, what went wrong. As a baseball president, the manager has a debrief every day. I'm sure, I assume you have a debrief. How'd the draft go? How'd last year's draft go? I'm sure you were always looking to get better. What did we do wrong? It's nothing personal. It's only business, right? You want to get better. Democrats didn't have that, right? We just got our, you know what, kicked. And we haven't had that honest debrief with Americans. We need to go, look, Americans, we were wrong. We're going to get better. We're going to get back to focusing on the middle class. Because if we don't, the direction we're going is really profoundly bad with what this administration is doing, and we need to do that. We need to get better.
How concerned are you that you're going to ruffle the feathers of the Democratic Party and that they will not support you? Because you can't run for Senate without winning the primary, and you got to win the Democratic primary first. How concerned are you if you're not embracing the Democratic Party? Instead, you're actually going almost against them.
Yeah, I love the Democratic Party. The Democrats here in Texas are awesome. I did two talks a couple days ago with county party groups. They are so happy. They love the message. They love my message of getting back to focusing on economic issues, getting the working class back. I come from a working class family. Everybody in my family was a union member. I was the first guy to go to college. And if we do that, we're going to win two-thirds to one-third, but we haven't done that yet. And so I love Democrats. I love Texas Democrats. The problem has been kind of the Washington, a couple dozen insiders that let the party go too far down the culture war side, and Americans just don't believe in that. I'll give you this other quick statistic. 3,200 counties in America. 2,000 of those counties are rural. Bill Clinton in the 90s won 52% of the rural counties. So middle America was with Bill Clinton. That number has been going down to where Kamala Harris won 8%, right? In Texas, along the valley, all the Hispanic Texans were voting for Trump. A lot of Black Americans are voting for Trump. So we need to, focus on those folks and get back to our roots as LBJ or JFK Democrats.
So if you are trying, obviously in Texas, when you're doing your math and you're figuring out how to win the primary, you've already made the decision that the Hispanic vote is moved. But the problem is if they're not registered as Democrats, they don't vote in the primary. If people don't realize that they're registered as independents or Republicans for that matter, you can vote for whoever you want in the general election, but you don't get to vote in the primary. How big an issue does your campaign staff feel that is?
Yeah, actually in Texas, It's open primary, so anybody can vote for anybody. I
Oh,
could vote in
thank you,
Arizona.
Terry. I did not know. I was
Yeah,
speaking as a New Yorker where it's a closed primary. So
yeah.
therefore, you can go after in Texas. Thank you. And by the way, we're live. We don't edit. This will be in the show that I had that wrong. So that means that you can go after in your mind the Hispanic vote from either side of the aisle. And will that be your differentiating factor, do you think?
I hope so. I've got a friend of mine was a Mexican American astronaut, Jose Hernandez. They just had a movie about him last year. He's going to come down and talk to folks. A friend of mine is another Mexican American is going to help me. I've got Duolingo. I've got Spanish on Duolingo, so I'm working on on my Spanish. I speak French, so whenever you're always speaking French on the podcast, I understand those words. But I think that's going to be a big part of it. The inner city in Dallas and Houston. I'm going to talk to those folks. The Hispanic community in San Antonio. Texas is a big state, by the way. If we were a country, we'd have the eighth largest economy on Earth. So it's a big task.
So how many days until the primary?
232. I have a launch countdown clock on my laptop.
Okay, so
March 3rd.
therefore, when
Yeah.
you are allocating your time, because we talk about this on Nothing Personal, time is short. You can't buy more of it, no matter how much money you raise. When you think about allocating your time, what have you been told, and what do you think is the best use of your time over the next 200 plus days? Is it door to door? Is it events? Is it money raising, phone calls? What do you think is the most important to win that primary?
Yeah, my staff has let me know that I'm the horse, I'm not the jockey, so they're going to run me. There's two things. First of all, you win elections with votes, so I need to focus my time on two things: getting votes and getting money. I can't have a staff unless I have money. So fundraising is really important. And for a first-time candidate, plus I was in the Air Force for over 30 years, so I'm not, a wealthy team president. So raising money is a very important thing. So my time is getting votes and raising money, and then the staff is talking to the media, setting up my travel. I'm going to be traveling all around the state of Texas for the next, what is it, 8 months. So
Do you have a tour bus?
F-150 is going to be my tour bus.
Wait,
Initially, but eventually we'll
what?
get to the John McCain Straight Talk Express or something like that.
People don't remember the story because I don't tell it very often. You had to, when you were active in the Air Force, you had to have some test hours, like you had to fly.
Yeah,
And so you would fly. I hope this can be public. If not, it's
it
about to
can.
be. You would fly from Houston to Miami to have lunch with me and Conine and then fly back.
Well, it was space flight readiness training. So as an astronaut, you had to fly 15 hours a month, and I was a pilot, and some of the astronauts are backseaters. So we would just pick a place. We would fly to, Oklahoma or California or Florida, do navigation training, do all the flying training. But if you got to go somewhere, you may as well go. What was the pizza place Conan used to take us to?
Are
Um,
you scared? He took us. You came in more than once.
it was like
So
Uncle
we
Guido's or
went to
something. Yeah,
Garcia's. We got
yeah,
pizza together. We
yeah.
went to some games. What is the fear when you go to bed at night and you're thinking about running for office and the ghosts that, the digging, the opposition research, all the things that are going to happen during the course of this. And it could end up that you don't win the primary. And then in theory, that's the end of that story for the moment. The fear when you go to bed versus the fear when the countdown is on and you're strapped in, about to be launched into space, and the countdown is on, it's set, it's down from 10. Is that the most fear you've ever felt, or is this the most fear you've ever felt?
Um, well, this is certainly more mentally stressful for your family and everything. The first thing I did in this once I decided I was going to run, like the first step was opposition research on myself. So we hired a firm, dig up everything you can, and hours of sitting down and, everything about your life. My staff knows more about me probably than anybody else. And at the end of it, they were like, that's all. And anyway, but there's dirt. Everybody has dirt. Uh, Even if you don't have anything, they're still going to make up stuff and lie about you. And my mom reads the comments on Twitter. I'm like, Mom, stop reading, stop reading comments on Facebook.
Terry, is the space station in a studio in California?
You gotta, we gotta have another. Everybody talks about Area 51, It's Area 52 you really want to know about.
So you
I'm
never
joking.
actually.
I'm joking. That's irony.
Don't
That's
clip and
humor.
aggregate that, Coca. He's joking. He actually was on the space station because I don't know how else he'd get the photos that he sent to me that were part of a great, and there's a great movie that you're a part of that
Yeah,
I reviewed on this show. Do you want to mention that movie?
I
That's a
remember that.
great way
It's an
for people to
IMAX
learn.
movie. Yep, called A Beautiful Planet. It's an awesome movie. If you have a chance, take your kids to go to the IMAX theater, or I think you can get a DVD or watch it on probably Disney because they own whatever. So yeah, A Beautiful Planet. One, I think it's the best IMAX movie. The lady that made it, Toni Myers, unfortunately, it was her last movie because she got cancer and passed away. But she made all the space IMAX movies for the last 30 years, and she saved her best for last.
I want to talk about baseball and politics because they're related and they always have been, whether it's through presidential first pitches, whether it's through labor wars that have happened, that have found their way into the House and the Senate and into the White House, even. So, you're a baseball fan, you're a big baseball fan. What inning are you currently in right now in your campaign?
This is the middle of the first. We've already had the first pitch. And we just launched a couple weeks ago. So this is new. But it's there's a pitch timer now, so the game's moving pretty fast. The ninth inning is coming. Um, the primary is probably, I don't know, inning five, inning six. So things are the pace of this game is picking up.
Do you have a plan if you don't win the primary, which I hope you do? Is there a way? Because it just happened in New York recently when Cuomo didn't win the primary, but now he's going to run anyway for mayor. Is it something where you and your staff, because in baseball, we would never plan to lose, we would never have a plan B.
Right.
Shockingly, I just didn't want that. Is that the mentality you have going into this primary?
Yeah, there's plan A. There's no plan B. Actually, the other thing that's weird about Texas, Texas is very different from New York. We have a sore loser law where if you lose the primary, you can't run as an independent. So I either win the primary or I don't.
So they don't let you run. Is that for one cycle or is that forever?
I think it's just not. I think it's just for the
That particular
cycle.
cycle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like if in 2 years I could run as an independent, but you kind of need to be a billionaire to run as an independent, and unfortunately, there's an old saying, you go to war with the army you have, and the army we have in America is a two-party system. So that's kind of how you win elections. A guy named Dan Osborne almost won in Nebraska because he convinced the Democrats not to run a candidate. So it was him as an independent and the Republican. But if there's three parties in a big statewide race, that's tough to win as the third party guy.
When you look at social media and the influence it now has, and you look back at campaigns that properly use social media, and to get celebrity endorsements, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Have you thought about which players, like Kevin Durant is a new member of the Houston Rockets? Is that
Yeah.
someone that you'd want to sit down with and see if you could get him to support your candidacy?
Absolutely. I love, I'm going to do non-traditional things. I was on Joe Rogan a few years ago, but I'll go on any kind of podcast, talk with anybody. I won't go on any podcast. I'm not going to go on the
Thanks so
Alex Jones
much.
and some of that craziness, but yeah, I would talk to anybody. I'd love to have, if you know Kevin, come join Team Verts. We need you on the team.
Because that's the key, is to get it out there with what
Yeah.
your views are, because really what we do on Nothing Personal is we educate people on both sides of an issue and let people decide where they stand on Second Amendment issues, or where they stand on what's going on in Israel, etc. And so before we end here, can you just, in 1 minute, we have 1 minute left, give me the elevator speech of why you should be the next United States Senator from the great state of Texas?
So I'm not a politician. I'm a fighter pilot. I'm a NASA astronaut. So for me, mission is sacred. Like everything's all about the mission. And I approach problems as a problem solver. I want to govern, I want to get things done. I don't want to be on team D bashing team R. It's not just red versus blue. It's red, white, and blue. So that's how I'm going to approach this thing. It's about judgment, and I think I have good judgment, having served the country for over 30 years, being a combat veteran, and I have a perspective of looking down on the earth that very well, only one other senator does, Mark Kelly. And those things make me a lot better suited than the current, Cornyn's been in there for 40 years, the guy I'm running against, Ken Paxton, one of the most corrupt human beings on the planet. So I think that let's serve America, let's govern is the right answer.
Please go to terryvirts.com and learn all you can about your candidates for U.S. Senate, wherever you are. And for our fans in Texas, terryvirts.com. Terry, I appreciate your time. We will do this again down the road.
Let's do it, David. Thanks so much for having me on.